They opened the sealed coffins, expecting to find bones, but found only dust and dark burn marks. How could bodies vanish from inside a perfectly intact, buried casket? Even more unsettling, why were there scratch marks on the inner lid, as if something had desperately tried to get out? If you encountered such an impossible mystery, what would be your first thought? Share your theories in the comments below. And if tales of the unexplained and terrifying mysteries chill you to the bone, make sure to subscribe to Host of Silence, so you don't miss a single one. To uncover the unsettling truth behind Hollow Grove Cemetery's most disturbing secret, we must go back to the foggy hills of Massachusetts in the early 19th century. Hollow Grove Cemetery, established in 1807, occupied a secluded, almost forgotten stretch of land in rural Massachusetts. Its perimeter, defined by ancient stone walls partially swallowed by ivy and guarded by rusted iron gates, harbored a profound, almost oppressive silence. Within its boundaries, 139 souls lay interred, each marked by a stone, some standing proudly, others tilting precariously, their inscriptions eroded by the relentless passage of time. The cemetery was more than just a burial ground. It was a chronicle etched in granite and earth, a repository of generations of village life, and a place where the veil between the living and the departed seemed perpetually thin. The very air there often felt heavy, imbued with the quiet stories of those who rested beneath the gnarled roots of ancient oaks. The mid-19th century brought a cataclysmic event to the village, the mysterious fire of 1852. It began without warning, a furious conflagration that devoured homes, businesses, and much of the village's tangible history. Its origin remained an unsolved riddle, cloaked in rumor and whispered speculation, leaving an indelible scar on the community's collective psyche. The cemetery itself remained untouched by the flames, a solitary island of peace amidst the devastation, yet the shadow of the unexplained blaze lingered. Among those laid to rest in the years following this profound tragedy were two individuals whose fates would later entwine with the cemetery's deepest enigma. Beatrice Moore, a young local teacher of 27, buried in 1852 after succumbing to an unstated affliction in the fire's unsettling wake, and Elijah Renard, a 41-year-old blacksmith and widower. Renard was a man of peculiar faith, known for conducting private, unconventional religious rites that often drew the curious and the wary. Both found their final repose within Hollow Grove's hallowed, yet increasingly watchful, grounds. Decades later, in the autumn of 1891, the quiet sanctity of Hollow Grove was irrevocably disturbed by the cold hand of municipal decree. A court order mandated the cemetery's deactivation and the mass exhumation of all 139 graves, their contents destined for reinterment in a larger, more modern municipal cemetery miles away. The task was considered a cumbersome but ultimately routine procedure, an unavoidable consequence of urban expansion and public health concerns. Walter Griggs, a man of 59 years, hardened by a life spent in pragmatic labor, was tasked with supervising the exhumation team. His crew consisted of seasoned laborers, individuals accustomed to the grim realities of their work, expecting nothing more than the dusty, decaying remains of a long-gone past. The anticipation was that of a laborious but uneventful undertaking, merely a matter of time and careful effort. The early days of the exhumation unfolded as predicted. Pickaxes bit into the hardened earth, shovels scraped against coffin lids, and each opened grave typically yielded the expected skeletal occupant, sometimes accompanied by fragile remnants of burial shrouds or personal effects. The work was slow, painstaking, and utterly devoid of surprise, until the crew reached two specific burial plots in a less frequented section of the grounds. The first belonged to Beatrice Moore. As the soil was carefully removed, exposing the coffin, its structure appeared perfectly sound, its wooden planks unblemished by external forces. Walter Griggs, a man whose life had taught him to trust the concrete evidence before him, observed as the workers meticulously unfastened the lid. With a soft creak, it was lifted. The sight within instantly froze the seasoned crew, and even Griggs felt a chill that had nothing to do with the crisp autumn air. The coffin was entirely, inexplicably empty. There was no dust, no trace of bone, no decayed fabric, not even the faint impression of a body within its confines. The interior was pristine, as if it had never held anything but air. The heavy oak casket was perfectly sealed, it seemed showing no signs of having been tampered with. There were no marks of a crowbar, no broken locks, no disturbed earth around the burial that suggested a clandestine act of grave robbing. The impossible nature of the absence was immediate and profound. The very notion of a body snatching, a grim reality in earlier times, was summarily dismissed. The circumstances defied the very possibility. The team, their earlier methodical calm shattered by this unprecedented discovery, moved with a palpable sense of trepidation to the adjacent plot. This was the final resting place of Elijah Renard. A hushed expectation hung in the air as the process repeated itself. The careful excavation, the uncovering of a similarly intact and sealed coffin. Walter Griggs leaned forward, his gaze fixed, a knot forming in his stomach. When the lid of Renard's casket was slowly pried open, the scene inside mirrored Moore's with chilling precision. This coffin, too, was utterly, unequivocally empty. Again, the absence was total, the interior unmarred, the seals unbroken. The methodical, supervised exhumation had yielded not bodies, but voids. The collective disbelief of the team was profound, but none more so than Walter Griggs. He stood over the twin empty cavities, his mind struggling to reconcile what his eyes witnessed with all he knew of the physical world. Two perfectly preserved, sealed coffins, deep within the earth, yet containing absolutely nothing. The logical pathways of his mind, accustomed to order and reason, crumpled under the weight of this impossible reality. The air in Hollow Grove, once merely quiet, now seemed to crackle with an unspoken, unseen energy. A routine administrative task had abruptly transformed into an unfathomable enigma, an unsettling anomaly that defied all rational explanation. The mystery of Hollow Grove had not merely begun. It had announced itself with an unsettling, undeniable emptiness, sowing the first insidious seeds of doubt and a creeping paranoia within Walter Griggs, a disquiet that would forever mark his soul. The chilling discovery in the Massachusetts cemetery sent ripples of unease through the quiet community, an inexplicable void where bodies should have rested. In the immediate aftermath of the exhumation, the local authorities, overwhelmed by the sheer audacity of the anomaly, sought expertise beyond their rudimentary understanding of such macabre events. Dr. Evelyn Chambers, a 43-year-old forensic anthropologist renowned for her meticulous approach and unervingly calm demeanor in the face of the grotesque, was summoned to the site. Her arrival, a beacon of scientific rigor amidst the prevailing superstition, brought a fragile hope that logic might yet untangle the knot of mystery. Dr. Chambers approached the two open, empty caskets with a dispassionate professionalism that belied the unsettling nature of their contents, or rather, their lack thereof. Her instruments, laid out with clinical precision, awaited their task. She examined every seam, every nail, every fiber of the decaying wood and silk lining. Her gloved fingers traced the inner surfaces, searching for any sign of forced entry, any splintered wood, any disturbed earth clinging to the exterior that might indicate a surreptitious removal. Days bled into weeks as she painstakingly documented every minute detail, her observations recorded in a precise hand, her brow often furrowed in a quiet contemplation that offered no immediate answers. Her final chilling pronouncement echoed through the hushed chambers of the inquiry: there was no violation, only absence. This definitive statement eliminated the possibility of grave robbery or clandestine removal by human hands from the outside. The integrity of the coffins themselves, though aged, remained unimpeachable. No tools had pried them open, no forced entry had occurred. The bodies of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard had simply not been there when the caskets were last sealed. Yet, the absence was not entirely featureless. Within the confines of both empty vessels, Dr. Chambers noted disturbing anomalies that defied rational explanation. On the delicate, decaying silk lining of Beatrice Moore's coffin, and similarly, though less pronounced, within Elijah Renard's more austere wooden interior, faint, dark smudges marred the fabric and wood. These were not mere stains of time or decay. They appeared as traces of something intensely hot, something that had scorched the material from within, leaving behind a fine, almost imperceptible residue of burnt matter. The mark suggested an internal, localized heat, a brief, intense conflagration that had consumed nothing but left its indelible imprint. Even more unsettling were the findings within Beatrice Moore's coffin, a detail that sent a cold shiver through even the most hardened observers. On the interior surface of the lid, where the deceased's face would have been mere inches away, distinct indentations marred the aged wood. These were not accidental scratches or the work of insects. They were deep, raw gouges, unmistakably the marks of fingernails desperately clawing at the unyielding timber from the inside. The pattern suggested a frantic, desperate struggle, a final, terrifying attempt at escape from a sealed tomb. The implications were horrifying, painting a silent, gruesome picture of unimaginable terror in the moments before whatever unholy phenomenon had transpired. The revelation of the empty caskets and the inexplicable marks plunged the families of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard into a maelstrom of grief, confusion, and profound incredulity. Their initial sorrow at the exhumation quickly morphed into a chilling despair, an inability to comprehend the disappearance of their loved ones' remains. Authorities, equally baffled, found themselves at a complete loss. The scientific findings offered no practical solutions, no culprits, no discernible motive. The case, devoid of logical anchors, spiraled into a realm of the unexplainable, frustrating every attempt at a conventional investigation. Official reports, meticulously compiled by Walter Griggs, the 59-year-old supervisor of the exhumation team, remained stubbornly inconclusive, a testament to the bewildering nature of the events. The psychological toll on Walter Griggs was immediate and devastating. The man, once a picture of sturdy competence, rapidly deteriorated. The unnerving silence of the empty coffins, coupled with the chilling implications of Dr. Chambers' findings, seemed to haunt his every waking moment. Sleep became an elusive luxury, replaced by long, agonizing nights spent staring into the oppressive darkness, his mind replaying the spectral images of the vacant burial sites. A profound paranoia took root, manifesting in a pervasive distrust and a constant, almost physical sense of being watched. He began to avoid public spaces, his once sociable demeanor replaced by a withdrawn, haunted silence. Any mention of the cemetery, the exhumation, or the names of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard would cause a visible tremor to pass through his frame, his eyes glazing over with an unspoken terror. He steadfastly refused to speak of the case. A vow of silence he maintained with an unwavering, desperate resolve until his own death years later. His unyielding refusal to revisit the topic underscored the truly terrifying and inexplicable nature of what he had witnessed, a horror too deep to articulate. Amidst the chaos and Walter Griggs's silent torment, Miriam Holloway, then 66, a local historian with an insatiable curiosity for the village's past, began her own quiet, meticulous investigation. She observed the official proceedings, absorbing every detail of Dr. Chambers' findings and the authorities' bewildered responses. Miriam, a woman of sharp intellect and an uncanny ability to connect disparate threads of information, began to catalog the inconsistencies, the whispered rumors, and the official narratives surrounding the case. She collected newspaper clippings, interviewed distraught family members, and meticulously cross-referenced historical records. Her dedication to preserving the full, unvarnished truth of this baffling event grew with each passing day. She witnessed firsthand the mystery deepen, transforming from a mere anomaly into a pervasive local legend, an unresolved horror that clung to the very air of the village. Miriam Holloway, who would eventually become the last caretaker of the cemetery before its eventual deactivation, understood that some stories, particularly those born of such profound absence and terror, demand not just to be told, but to be remembered meticulously, faithfully, against the encroaching tide of forgetfulness. Her detailed notes, painstakingly compiled over decades, would become the most comprehensive record of the inexplicable events of 1891, a silent testament to a truth too unsettling to fully grasp. The village of Hollow Grove in the mid-19th century was a place of quiet rhythms, its days marked by the clang of the blacksmith's hammer and the distant murmur of the schoolhouse. Within this unassuming landscape lived Beatrice Moore, a woman of 27, whose presence brought a gentle order to the lives of the village's children. As a teacher, she was revered, her lessons a blend of arithmetic and moral instruction, delivered with a calm demeanor that belied the latent anxieties of the era. Her small cottage, nestled on the edge of the village common, was a beacon of learning, its windows often alight late into the evening as Beatrice prepared her curricula. Her life, for all its quiet dedication, seemed unremarkable, a thread woven seamlessly into the fabric of Hollow Grove's existence. Then came the summer of 1852, a season that would forever scar the collective memory of the community. A fire, swift and merciless, erupted in the dead of night, consuming a significant portion of the village. Its origins remain shrouded in an unsettling ambiguity, theories ranging from a carelessly discarded ember to something far more sinister, whispered only in hushed tones behind closed doors. The conflagration claimed homes, livelihoods, and lives, among them that of Beatrice Moore. Her passing was officially attributed to the inferno, her body, or what remained of it, interred with a solemnity due to a respected member of the community. The grave, marked by a simple stone, was believed to hold her earthly remains in eternal rest, a belief that would be shattered decades later by the chilling discovery of an empty coffin and the indelible marks upon its interior lid. Those deep, desperate gouges, later noted by Dr. Evelyn Chambers as absence, bore silent witness to a horror beyond comprehension. Were they the final, frantic struggle of a soul trapped, buried alive in a state of terror? Or were they a posthumous manifestation, a macabre echo of an agony endured before death, imprinted by an unseen force? The questions lingered, a cold shadow over the memory of the gentle teacher. Across the village, yet seemingly a world apart, lived Elijah Renard. At 41, the blacksmith was a figure of imposing stature, his hands gnarled by years of shaping iron, his face etched with the silent grief of a widower. His forge, usually a hub of industry and communal exchange, had, over time, become a place of increasing solitude. The rhythmic clang of his hammer, once a comforting sound, now often punctuated long stretches of an eerie quiet, broken only by the occasional, peculiar sounds emanating from within his workshop late at night. It was not merely his reclusive nature that set him apart, it was the growing reputation for his unusual religious practices. These practices were never openly discussed, but they were the subject of constant, uneasy speculation among the villagers. Elijah was observed to possess a collection of ancient leather-bound tomes, their pages filled with strange symbols and unfamiliar script, far removed from the familiar sermons of the local church. Candles burned in his windows at odd hours, casting flickering shadows that danced with the shapes of unseen rituals. Occasionally, a faint, acrid scent, unlike any found in the blacksmith's trade, would drift from his property, prompting neighbors to draw their curtains tighter and offer hurried prayers. He was rumored to engage in solitary rites beneath the pale moonlight, his silhouette a dark, unreadable shape against the backdrop of the Massachusetts woods. These were not the devotions of a conventional faith. They hinted at something older, perhaps darker, whispered to involve communion with entities not of this world, or attempts to manipulate forces beyond human comprehension. His isolation was not merely a consequence of his grief, but a deliberate choice, born from a spiritual path that diverged sharply from the accepted norms of Hollow Grove. This divergence made him an object of both fear and morbid fascination, a man whose sorrow seemed to have led him down a path towards the esoteric, transforming him from a simple craftsman into a figure of unsettling mystique. The lives of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard, on the surface, appeared entirely separate. One, a beacon of community and education; the other, a solitary figure shrouded in the unsettling whispers of forbidden knowledge. No direct connection between the teacher and the blacksmith was ever publicly acknowledged or observed by the villagers. They moved in different spheres, their daily routines rarely intersecting beyond the most superficial of greetings. Yet, their shared fate, the inexplicable disappearance of their earthly remains from their respective resting places, suggested a sinister thread that bound them together, a commonality far more profound than mere proximity in death. The question of what truly connected them remained a haunting enigma. Was it the fire of 1852, the very event that claimed Beatrice's life and perhaps, in some unseen way, precipitated Elijah's deepening descent into his peculiar practices? Did the inferno itself serve as a catalyst, not merely for destruction, but for the unleashing of energies that subsequently ensnared them both? Or was their shared absence a symptom of a larger, unseen influence that had long festered beneath the tranquil surface of Hollow Grove, an inexplicable force that targeted those whose lives, whether by virtue of their quiet virtue or their shadow devotions, made them susceptible to its insidious grasp? The village, in its hushed recollections, could offer no definitive answers, only the chilling acknowledgment that two disparate souls had been claimed by the same profound and unsettling mystery, their stories converging not in life, but in the bewildering silence of their empty graves. The village elders, even Miriam Holloway in her later years, could only recount the facts, never the underlying truth, leaving the terrifying possibilities to echo in the minds of those who dared to ponder the fate of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard. More than a century had passed since the unsettling events at Hollow Grove, yet the shadow of its most profound mystery refused to dissipate. The old cemetery, once a place of quiet repose, had long since been decommissioned, its weathered headstones and crumbling mausoleums now mere echoes of a forgotten era. The town itself, nestled deep within Massachusetts, had grown and changed, its modern facade attempting to obscure the bizarre historical anomalies that had once shaken its very foundations. Yet, beneath the veneer of progress, the inexplicable lingered, a cold, persistent tremor in the collective memory. The remnants of the old burial ground, including the disinterred remains, had been meticulously transferred to the new municipal cemetery on the outskirts of town. This newer site, with its neatly aligned rows of polished granite and manicured lawns, represented a deliberate attempt at order and modernity. However, two particular interments within its otherwise conventional layout stood as stark, unsettling anomalies. The sealed, identified coffins of Beatrice Moore, the young local teacher whose life was cut short by the 1852 fire, and Elijah Renard, the reclusive blacksmith known for his peculiar devotions. Both coffins, remarkably preserved yet undeniably empty, rested side by side, eternal monuments to an absence that defied all logic. Dr. Evelyn Chambers, the forensic anthropologist, had confirmed it decades prior: no violation, just absence, a chilling declaration that had only deepened the enigma. Miriam Holloway, the last living caretaker of the original cemetery, had been the first to notice the horrifying inconsistency, her keen eye inadvertently opening a portal to the town's darkest secrets. These two particular graves had, over time, transformed from objects of morbid curiosity into a macabre attraction. Visitors, drawn by the whispers of local lore and the chilling facts recounted in historical archives, would often seek out the twin markers. They came not to mourn, but to bear witness to an enduring riddle, to touch the periphery of the inexplicable. Tourists, local teenagers daring each other on moonless nights, and even serious researchers would linger near the designated plots, a strange pilgrimage to the heart of an unsolved mystery. The polished brass plaques on each coffin, meticulously reaffixed after their relocation, bore the names Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard, followed by dates of birth and death, and then, the haunting addendum, body disappeared during exhumation, 1891. These words served as a perpetual silent challenge to anyone who dared to contemplate the void within. A consistent, almost ritualistic report emerged from those who spent any significant time near the empty resting places. A sudden internal drop in temperature, unrelated to the ambient air, would seize those who lingered near the two marked graves. It was a cold that seemed to emanate not from the ground, but from within, a profound, unsettling void that mirrored the very emptiness of the ornate wooden boxes below. This unusual chill was not merely a physical sensation. It was often accompanied by a profound sense of unease, a prickling awareness of something fundamentally wrong, something that defied the natural order of life and death. Walter Griggs, the supervisor of the 1891 exhumation team, had experienced a similar, persistent disquiet that had tormented him until his death, leaving him plagued by insomnia and an unshakable paranoia, forever refusing to speak of the empty coffins. His torment seemed to echo, in a diluted form, in the unsettling sensations reported by modern visitors. As decades turned into another century, the peculiar phenomena surrounding the empty coffins intensified, weaving themselves deeper into the fabric of local folklore. The most prominent and chilling of these urban legends revolved around a specific, unnerving auditory event. Across Hollow Grove, particularly in homes and buildings situated within a mile or two of the new cemetery, reports began to surface of two distinct, dull thuds emanating from the ground, always, without fail, precisely at 3:17 in the morning. These were not the creaks of old houses settling, nor the distant rumble of a passing train. They were described as heavy, muffled impacts, as if two substantial objects had struck the earth in quick succession, one after the other, from a depth far below the surface. The precision of the timing was perhaps the most unsettling aspect, creating an almost ritualistic dread for those who knew the legend. The connection to the empty coffins was immediate and pervasive. The townspeople, steeped in the lore of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard's vanished remains, interpreted these two thuds as an echo, a spectral resonance from the very moment of their disappearance, or perhaps their rebirth. It was whispered that these were the sounds of two final, desperate attempts to escape, or perhaps the very first sounds of an unknown, continued existence. The thuds became a chilling reminder of the unknown, a rhythmic pulse of a mystery that refused to be forgotten, binding the present day irrevocably to the terrifying events of 1852 and 1891. The eerie accuracy of the time, 3:17 a.m., added a layer of supernatural intent, suggesting a deliberate, unsettling communication from beyond the veil of understanding. Despite the passage of more than a century, despite the relentless march of scientific inquiry and the fading memories of those directly involved, the truth about the disappearance of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard's bodies remained an intractable enigma. No logical explanation had ever surfaced to account for the void within their sealed coffins, nor for the persistent, inexplicable phenomena tied to their empty resting places. The legacy of the Hollow Grove Cemetery, now transferred to a new, sterile location, continued to cast a long, disquieting shadow over the community. The fear of the inexplicable, born from two empty graves, had become an indelible part of the town's identity, a chilling testament to the enduring power of a mystery that refused to be solved, perpetually echoing the unsettling question of what truly transpired within those two forgotten, yet ever-present, wooden boxes. The chilling silence that echoed through the Massachusetts earth, after the revelation of those empty coffins, resonates far beyond the historical record. It whispers of a truth too unsettling to fully grasp, that some disappearances defy all logic, leaving behind not clues, but only an unyielding void. Was it a desperate escape orchestrated in the dead of night, or did something far older, far more insidious, simply reach out from the shadows of that doomed village and claim what it desired? The terror lies not in the act itself, but in the utter absence, the complete vanishing that leaves no trace, only an enduring question mark hanging over the memories of Beatrice Moore and Elijah Renard. It reminds us that even in our most meticulously recorded histories, there are gaps, dark spaces where the known world abruptly ends and something else, something terrifyingly unexplainable, begins. This lingering mystery forces us to confront the boundaries of our understanding. What do you believe truly transpired in those haunted Massachusetts nights? Are some histories simply destined to remain unfinished, or do you think the truth, however horrifying, might still be out there, waiting to be unearthed? Share your theories in the comments below. Your insights might just shed light on the darkness. And if you're compelled by the whispers of the past and the mysteries that refuse to die, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join us for more journeys into the unknown.